You know, there's a bunch of old golf adages that have been around probably since the 1800s. You've probably heard this one. So you've got to keep your arm straight throughout the swing. That left arm's got to stay straight. I can just imagine in the 1880s, these stuffy guys in their stuffy tweed coats and ties, and they're offering advice to each other, just like we do on the range now. Oh, you better keep your left arm straight, laddie. I could just imagine. Nothing has changed. We're still arguing over the importance of keeping the left arm straight. So in this video, we're going to talk a little bit more about that, and hopefully you'll get a little more insight and clarity on what you should be doing and how. Stay tuned. Hey, this is Steve with HitItLonger.com. I'm on a journey to hit it longer and straighter off the tee, be longer and straighter all the way to the green because, hey, I think that's what makes golf the most fun. If you're on a similar journey and you'd like to pick up a few yards off the tee with your driver, hit a couple extra fairways, then by all means join us. Hit the subscribe button, like this video if you liked it at the end, and leave a comment down below. All right, so we're talking about the left arm and whether or not we should keep it straight. Why should we keep it straight? I'm going to divide this video into two parts, and that the first part we're going to talk about the left arm being straight on the backswing, and then I'm going to talk about the importance of keeping the left arm straight on the downswing and through the impact zone. All right, starting with the backswing, there are some benefits we know of that involve keeping the arm straight. So if the arm stays very straight all the way to the top of the swing, like this, what we do know is that we're going to get the handle of the club to be wider, which also means further away from its impact point where you're going to hit the ball. Where's the handle when you come back down to impact? We're going to increase that journey in distance and time. So it's going to give you a more chance to accelerate the club to a higher speed. So more speed and power will come when the arm can be kept straight in the backswing. But what length should you go to keep the left arm straight is really the key here. And we've got to introduce an idea called outward seeking force. If we can put outward seeking force into the system before we arrive at the top of the swing, it will be much easier to keep the left arm straight, because, you know, we're told that we're supposed to be keeping the arms very relaxed during a golf swing, and yet that idea doesn't square up with the fact that the arm should be acting almost like a rigid bar at the top of the swing. If it's going to stay straight at the elbow and you're going to make any kind of considerable wind-up, it almost feels like you got to keep it locked and really tense. So my coach, Mike Austin, always used to warn us about keeping joints rigid because it would slow us down. We called it rigid slowness. And instead, he wanted us to have supple quickness. But supple seems to want to lead to more bent elbow at the top of the swing. So again, how do we square the two? And that is with the introduction of outward seeking force into the system, starting right at the takeaway. So if I were to line up just the left arm here, and I like to do a little bit of a pec grab across the corner of the chest here, my arm will be relatively extended. Now, if I can introduce some outward seeking force by pushing that club to the widest arc, way out here, and I can introduce that outward seeking force, the club at that point, as it starts to go quarter to halfway up, is now going to be building momentum on that nice wide arc. The momentum at that point is almost going to start pulling back on your arm. So the force you pushed outwards with is now going to be pulling on you. And unless you yank it off that track, it's going to want to try to seek that super wide arc all the way to the top of the swing that kind of keeps your arm pulled out straight. You know, going relaxation and having your arms start relaxed, but having them end up acting like an iron bar or let's say rebar that you just can't bend, that outward seeking force is really the key. So imagine if you're to hold on to something at home or shake hands with somebody and then start to lean back. If you both started leaning back, your arms would be pulled out away, pulling the shoulder out away like this, and your arm would start acting as if it was an iron bar, even though when you let go, your arm flops down with complete relaxation. Imagine like you had a rope swing in the backyard, and the wind's blowing, the ropes would be dangling back and forth very supply, and would stay that way until you sat down into, let's say you have a wooden bench, wooden seat, you sit down on the wooden seat, which pulls forces downwards away from where the rope is anchored, and it ends up making the rope be very taut or rigid, almost like rebar. You certainly couldn't wiggle it very easily. The same thing we're trying to establish with a golf swing is this outward seeking force. By introducing it early on, we hope we can preserve it and keep the outwards greater than the inwards as we reach the top of the swing. Now, what are the disadvantages of allowing the elbow to soften, the arm to soften? Well, you know, if you just did it a little bit and it looks something like this at the top of the swing where the elbow is just soft, I'd be just fine with that. I would never want you to seek out a super rigid arm and be very rigid just for the sake of keeping the arm straight. I'd much rather see you stay relaxed, even if it meant having a little bit of softness at the elbow at the top of the swing. That's perfectly fine. All right, now on to the downswing. And the downswing, I think, is much more important for the arm to be acting like this rigid bar from outward seeking force. I think in the backswing, any little mistakes you make in a backswing can always be recovered from as you come down. So anything you do in the downswing and through impact is really more important than what you do in the takeaway or the backswing, because that's where you're imparting all the information to the ball at impact and in the impact zone. So here we get into two totally separate and distinct concepts. One, you would pull with the arms this way, and you can see pulling with the arms really causes this elbow to bend and not be straight at all, and I'd be coming into the impact zone like this. What this will tend to do is cause a deficit in clubhead speed. It will also cause you to, it'll kind of wreck your angle of attack if you're pulling on it this way and you're tense. Again, you've got the inward pull is overwhelming any outward seeking force that you might be putting on it by uncocking the wrist. So you end up with a net inward pull, bends the left elbow. It's also going to tend to wreck the angle of attack and hit down on the driver instead of up, costing you more yardage. And pulling with the arms is also going to tend to wreck your accuracy and make you have a tendency to come into the ball with an open club face, therefore making you tend to miss to the right or in most cases slice. So instead of pulling, if you could again repeat the start of the downswing just like you initiated the backswing with an outwards throw this way. You make outward seeking force overwhelm any inward seeking force, at least balance the two so that the club feels like it's pulling on your arm, just like shaking hands and leaning back. You can therefore relax the arms all the way through the hit, and yet they're getting pulled incredibly straight almost automatically. So let me hit a couple and let's see if I can get this dichotomy of, hey, relaxed arms that act like rigid bars because of the outward seeking force. So taking a look back at that swing I just made in slow motion, you can clearly see that I've got the arm pretty darn straight. It might have ever so slight amount of softness here at the top, but certainly as I'm coming back down into the ball again, the arm at impact you could see was lining up with the left arm being pulled taut like this, forming a straight line and as long of a lever as I could possibly make. Again, because my arm is being almost pulled out of the socket by the outward seeking force that is acting on my arm because of the outwards throw of the club head somewhere back in this neighborhood, then pulled on my arm. Now I've posted the numbers up here in the screen. You can see that not only did I get a nice amount of club head speed, ball speed, and distance, but my club head actually turned upwards quite a lot into impact there, which is a really good sign that I didn't pull down with the left arm and make it get bent this way. So hey, I hope this gives you a little bit more clarity on the why and the how you should be getting your arm relatively straight throughout the swing. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks to Golf Development Complex in Moorpark, California for hosting us today. And hey, if I don't see you in the next video, I hope I see you longer and straighter down the fairway. Take good care.